Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode number 10. 10. Wow. Episode number 10 of Swinging the Fences. I'm Steve Silver. That's Mr. Planning the Parade Swanson. What's going on, Chris?
You know what? They're currently blocking off 4th Avenue, downtown Seattle, all the way from like the Broad and Denny area, right by the Space Needle, all the way down to Pioneer Square. They've got the buses ready to go. It's going to be just like the Seahawks Super Bowl parade in February of 2014. They're already doing it. That's what we are prepared for with this Mariner team.
So they got the Ducks ready to go?
Yep.
They got
they pulled them out of retirement. They got since they'll be driving down the road at like 5 miles an hour, they're not worried about any of them overturning.
Well, you know what? It's never too early to plan. I got to let you know something, Swanee. I don't know if you know this, but the Mariners are hot as balls right now.
It's what I've been informed by all fans.
I know they're absolutely red fucking hot, and this is a 6-game winning streak that comes on the heels of an 8-game winning streak. Here's the thing: is this team perfect? Not even close. But I got to be honest with you, and I've been waiting for 4 months to say this because for the first 3.5 months of the season, they were playing uninspired baseball. If you looked at this team in June and said, "Yeah, I think this is a playoff team," go fuck yourself. No, that was not a playoff team. And all of a sudden, right in the middle of July, this team flipped a switch, and all of a sudden, they've been playing awesome baseball. I'm to the point now. They hold the third wild card spot right now. They're 3 games behind the Texas Rangers. I'm all in, man. This team looks and feels and plays like a playoff team. This week. Okay, so they struggled a little bit against the Royals in Kansas City, but they take 3 of 4, show up to Houston, and absolutely punked the Astros. Like, there's no other way you can say it. They absolutely manhandled a team. By the way, the Houston Astros came into that series kind of on fire as well too. They got Altuve back, and he was actually himself playing some inspired baseball. Seattle came in and absolutely just dropped the bomb on him. Unbelievable. That was a hell of a 3-game series in Houston, which is exactly what they needed. When you're kind of looking at this week and you kind of saw what the bullpen did in Kansas City, you're kind of wondering how that was going to shake out. Yesterday was a perfect example. They lose Emerson Foot Penis in the second inning. That's my little joke. They lose Emerson Hancock. If for all those guys who want to know what I just meant by that was an old Family Guy reference. But they lose him in the second inning. And the Mariners are forced to use their bullpen straight out in the third. Saucedo gets lit up for 5 runs, but the Mariners hold on, man. They held on to win that game. And so, kudos to that bullpen. I got to just kudos to this team all in general. This was a hell of a week.
Well, one of the keys to me of that whole series was the Astros didn't hit a home run with guys on base at all. You get the 2-0 win. I mean, look, in years past, 2 on, 2 out, and down 2-0 in the bottom of the 9th, like they were in Friday night's game.
Right.
So many clubs went out for a walk-off.
Right.
Saturday, there's just really no way around it. Was an ass kicking. I mean, it was 4-2 for a while, and the Mariners kind of piled on. I did get amused with the Caballero getting hit with a pitch immediately after Dylan Moore homered. You don't see that anymore. I think what cracked me up was the Mariners taking offense to that and being angry, as if that's never happened before. But I mean, look, the Astros have done that. They did that to the Rangers a few weeks ago, if I remember right. And then they come out, Sunday and get the big jump and hold them off. I know that probably 98% of Mariner fans probably didn't even see the game because thanks to MLB and their television contracts, they have to allot certain games to streaming, which if they did more than one a year or even one a month, you might be persuaded to get a Peacock or Apple TV Plus streaming service. So anyway, I had to sign up for one at work just so we could record the game and use it for highlights. It was interesting that they did the in-game interviews. They do that on Apple TV too. They do the in-game interviews, and of course, being is that it wasn't a television company or television broadcast that is owned by the Mariners, you actually had somebody, instead of lobbing a softball or a beach ball to be hit with a fungo, It was in one of their in-game interviews to Scott Service was, hey, how come Emerson Hancock was pulled after the second inning? And Scott Service, I forget exactly what he said, so I don't want to quote him, but it was something of, we got a long way to go. We want to save him. It just was like, and I'm watching it going, I didn't even have to hear what he said. It just went in one ear and out the other. And
it's the Charlie Brown's mom.
Yeah,
it's the Charlie Brown. Yeah, no. By the way, speaking of Emerson Hancock, he was put on the 15-day DL. What's being called is shoulder inflammation, a shoulder strain. But if you remember, if you recall, Ken Cloud, Ryan Anderson, some of these young guys from the Mariner past that were diagnosed as shoulder strains ended up having a torn rotator cuff, torn labrum issues. Shoulder injuries are absolutely nasty. So right now the Mariners are trying to downplay the injury. Yeah. But this doesn't look good. Especially considering the Mariners wanted to go to a 6-man rotation. That's not going to happen. Now, Brian Wu was supposed to come off the DL today and get the start against the White Sox. But before we get into this, I just want to remind folks, you can catch this live on YouTube. You can catch it on our Facebook page. And pretty soon I'm going to actually go on to Twitter, or I think it's now called X. So there's going to be multiple ways that you can check out the show. Also, today is Monday, and it's Mariner Monday, and today's a pretty good one, Swanee. So as we know, here's today's trivia question. So as we know, only 4 times in the history of this franchise has somebody hit for the cycle. Only 4. Can you name the first and the last? Or if you're a big baller, if you can name all 4, go ahead and name all 4. Give me the first and the last.
Yeah, I can think of 2 off the top of my head. Okay.
We'll have that at the end of the show.
Yeah.
But as I know I got you again. As we get into it, here's I want to get into Julio Rodriguez because I think this is actually quite important. During the Mariners' 8-game winning streak prior, it was a combination of Julio, J.P. Crawford. They got the big home run from Don Canzone. Excuse me, that was in a loss, but they got production for pretty much production for pretty much up and down the lineup. And this week it seemed to be like the J-Rod show for real. This actually seemed like a one-man barnstorm through the entire week. And this is actually quite important because I've been very vocal by saying that if the Mariners are going to actually finish this off and get into the postseason, there's going to be one guy who's going to have to step up, and that is the face of the franchise. And as we know, the Mariners have made it abundantly clear that Julio Rodriguez is the face of this franchise. Period, point blank, end of discussion. He's the guy, and he's that guy for a reason. And so far this season, let's be perfectly honest, for the first 3.5, 4 months of the season, he was not the J-Rod show. He was anything but the J-Rod show. He struggled mightily, especially in the first 3 months of the season. But as the calendar turned to July, and when we got into mid-July, we started seeing Julio Rodriguez not necessarily chase as much as he had, and he actually started making contact, not just making contact, but actually barreling up baseballs to the point where you're starting to see Julio Rodriguez kind of carry this offense, which is absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely needed. This week, he went 23 for 37. 23 for 37. 6 runs scored, 12 RBIs. He hit 2 bombs, hit 3 doubles. And so these aren't just weak base hits. These are absolutely gut shot, just absolute bombs. He's I can't say enough about the guy. He's finally starting to come around. And again, if this team wants to get to the postseason, he's going to be the guy that has to carry him there. But not only is he supposed to be there, but obviously guys like Ty France, Teoscar Hernandez, Gino Suarez. Yes, those guys are going to have to do it, but the focal point has to be on Julio Rodriguez. Sorry, I couldn't spit that out.
Well, one thing he's also avoided is an injury. There seemed to be nagged down a couple of times last season.
Yes. Yeah.
I think maybe he's sat out a game or 2 here or there, but I don't believe he's been on the IL this season.
I think he missed 3 games in May with that little back injury, but for the most part, he stayed relatively healthy.
Yeah. It to me, I don't see him doing a whole lot different. I mean, there's still strikeouts, obviously, but it seems like he's just actually hitting what's being thrown out there instead of swinging. Also, he doesn't seem to be, and this is really almost goes for a bunch of the Mariners. They don't seem to be chasing as much stuff that's 4 to 11 inches off the plate. Now we'll say, I've crapped on him a lot for that. I mean, that's happening all over baseball. Product of that is also swinging at those bad pitches is also the amount of horrible strike calls that there has been across Major League Baseball on pitches. So if you're a hitter and you've got, a pitch that's going to be seriously 5 inches off the plate is going to be called a strike, you're going to have to start swinging at it, which means you're going to start reaching. And then the next thing you know, you're trying to hit something that's 3 or 4 inches off the plate and it breaks and it's really a foot, but you've already committed to swing because you think you've got it. I think it's led to an increase in the strikeouts. But yeah, I mean, he's red hot. There's no doubt about it. That road trip did not start well. I mean, the fact that they even lost one game in Kansas City, frankly, made me go, well, you know what? I don't even care if they win 3 or 4. This series is ruined. But they make amends by sweeping in Houston. Is it the same Houston team that won the World Series last year? Yes. But boy, they look – I looking at that team, they look almost lifeless, fightless. The only thing that showed any fight was when Framber Valdez, clipped and he hit him down in the shin guard. Hit Jose Caballero one pitch after Dylan Moore homered. That was the only fight that Houston looked like. They looked like a dead team. I wouldn't be surprised if they fall completely out of the race, and I mean drop down to the Boston wild card standings.
You can't blame them, though. This is the same Houston team that's made deep runs into the postseason since 2017, right? So
they've got the experience. There's no question about it. Yeah, they look like a balloon that's been deflated.
You're talking
kind of sitting there with a slight amount of air in.
You're talking about a franchise that's been to the LCS or better since 2017. So I mean,
they don't look like they have any energy. They look listless.
Well, I will say until somebody beats them, there's to me they're still the odds-on favorites until somebody else can prove that they can take them out. Not just in the. I mean, if they fall apart, they fall apart. It is what
the only team having trouble with them is Texas, the Rangers.
Right.
So it's odd. I mean, we'll see how the next 6 weeks shakes out.
You brought up something interesting during the week. You mentioned the word fortunate. The Mariners right now were absolutely fortunate because of the injury situation. You lose Jared Kelenic. He's supposed to come back in September. They traded Paul Sewald. They lost JP, and from what reports are saying now, JP's about to go on a rehab assignment with the Everett Aqua Sox. Go Everett. They lose Brian Wu, and now they lost Tom Murphy, and now they just lost Emerson Hancock. And yet this team continues to play good, inspired baseball. By the way, the Mariners are 21-7 without Kelenic. They're 13-4 since Sewald got traded, so conversely, they're 13-4 with Rojas and Canzone. They're 6-3 without JP, which is actually kind of impressive. They're 11-3 since Wu went down, and they're 5-1 since Murphy went down. Not necessarily saying that's that big of a loss, but I was thinking about it this morning while I was at work. Absolutely, this team is fortunate because some of these injuries are actually key injuries, and especially when you consider the loss of Hancock and Wu, just how good this Mariner rotation has been over the course of the last month. Any injuries, any long-term injuries to this rotation, that could be crippling. And yet, this team continues every 5 days. This team continues to win baseball games. So I guess that's a credit to the fighting spirit of this baseball team, because generally speaking, and if you understand winning streaks, Chris, they're contagious, right? There's no necessary reason to them. It's when you're hot, and you want to keep that sustainability, and yet this team continues to do it. So you're absolutely right. They're fortunate.
Looking at the Mariners made some announcements today, roster moves. I don't see anything about Everett, but it would make sense that JP would do a rehab. JP came off the IL today. Sam Haggerty optioned back down to Tacoma. Emerson Hancock put on the 15-day IL. I still say DL. I don't know why we had to. Was there something politically incorrect about the disabled list? Is that what it meant? Well, the IL. And then Darren McCacken recalled once again from Tacoma. Ooh. So I think that's his third and final. I think they're out of options on him. So if McCacken goes back down,
is that how you pronounce it, McCacken? I always called him McKagan, but yeah, McCacken.
Yeah, it's McCacken. It's one of the weirdest. Does not look like a McCacken.
It doesn't look like
McCoulihan, but it is McCacken. So
I thought it was McKagan, but
yeah, they're going to make that. They're going to have. He's obviously going to now the rotation.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you. So they're still planning on the 6-man rotation, but they're going with McCacken.
Yeah.
Well, good for him. Darren, he's a long-time Tacoma Rainiers starter. And when you look at his body of work over the course of the last 3 years in Tacoma, he's definitely earned the right to be in Seattle. So good for him. But yeah, I just get back to this, this last week. When I think about it, and especially when you looked at what was happening in Kansas City, the Matt Brash issue in the first game of that series. Then you had Munoz throwing 40 pitches in the second game in that one that they barely escaped. I wanted to ask you, because this has been a team that's really been without a closer since what they traded Edwin Diaz to the Mets.
Yeah.
And this team is, how they've used the closer's role. I mean, this year they used Paul Sewald. Last year a little bit as well too, but for the most part they've always gone closer by committee. And what they've been using is their advanced scouting to look ahead, use matchups, using lineup configurations, putting guys in the best possible spots to succeed. This was the same team that used Brett Steckenrider as a closer for a little bit in 2021. As soon as they ended up trading what's his bucket to Houston. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. I got to be honest with you. I've never been a fan of closer by committee, just because if guys don't have the I hate to use this cliche term, but mental toughness. Some guys are built for the ninth inning. Some guys are not built for the ninth inning. When I look at the Mariner bullpen, I don't see anybody that's really built for the ninth inning. I have always thought your best reliever should handle those duties right now. And I got to be honest with you, Justin Topa right now is our best reliever right now.
Right today, yeah, I would agree.
Today, right now, and they're still using him in the 6th and 7th inning.
To me, it's simple. Name one team in the last 30 years.
Thank you.
That made the World Series with a closer by committee.
That did not have any closer.
And if you can meet that challenge, okay, that's challenge 1A. Challenge 1B. Name a team that won the World Series with a closer by committee.
Yeah.
I think teams have made the LCS with that. Look, there's one.
Even when the A's were going down,
to be nothing but positive for this show, Steve. But
no, I mean, by the way, this is a positive. This is a positive show. This is our positivity, which some might claim that might be negativity, but this is our positivity.
It's easy to gloss by some of the issues when they're winning, and they've done a hell of a lot of that lately.
Absolutely.
When I see some of the guys that are coming up and coming into pitch, I mean the amount of pitchers that they've gone through this year.
Yeah.
Boy, if it holds up, I mean at the rate they're going. Look, they're a playoff team. I mean, they may win the division, and it's going to be easy to jump. Here's the good news: if you win the division, it's going to be easy to jump. You're going to beat Minnesota for that number 2 seat. So you're not even having to play the wild card round. So that's immediately that's
beneficial.
But you don't have who's going to come in and close. I mean, look at some of the guys that have been in the higher pressure situations lately, and I know they're using different guys every day. And Gabe Spire closed the game, and it was a blowout on Saturday. But Barzardo or Barzardo, however it's pronounced.
Now, just imagine a playoff situation where you're up by 1, trying to close out Game 1 of the division series. and you're facing Yordan Alvarez again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that was
the issue. That was the issue.
Unless
in Game
they
1
get their
last year.
shit together, I don't know how Houston's going to make the playoffs unless they.
But you get what I'm saying.
Lean on their talent and they get it turned around, because that looked like a listless team to me. The Mariners had an energy level on a scale of 0 to 100. The Mariners had an energy level of about 135, and the Astros had an energy level of about 26.
But that was my example, right? I'm not necessarily specifically saying Yordan Alvarez, but you're in a pressure situation in the playoffs trying to close out playoff games, and then you have Matt Brash, Mr. Emotion, Mr. No Confidence, and then you have Munoz, who sometimes can't throw strikes.
You're facing it's the LCS, and you're facing Adley Rutschman in a tie game or down or up by one in the 8th or 9th.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. That's my point, right? So
it's a shortcoming. No, I agree.
Yeah, when I look at it, I can't help but think down the road. Especially don't even let's take the playoffs out of the equation. Let's talk about September, right? September is going to be somebody today on Facebook said something about how they're battle tested, and I said, listen, they're not battle tested yet. Right now, they're taking advantage of a soft spot in their schedule. This is what they're supposed to be doing. But come September, they will get the Dodgers. They will get the Rangers again for a 3-game series. They're going to be facing playoff teams in September. If they can get through that, and if they can, I'll say this: if they can get through that without any bullpen issues, you can. At that point, you can say they're battle tested. But up until that point, man, I'm sorry, I can't help but think when I see these chinks in the armor, it automatically makes me look forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you hit it right on the head. It's like what playoff team in recent memory has a closer by committee? And the answer is you don't. You've never seen it.
Well, what teams have they battle tested? What in the second half of the season? I mean, I guess we can go back to the beginning, their series against the Rays, when maybe this turnaround began, and that Saturday game, the second game of the series against the Rays, took 2-3 from the Rays, but that's the Mariners playing up to their competition, not down. Took 2-3 from Toronto a month ago, but then the last time they played a team of any moxie before Houston was Baltimore, and they lost 2 of 3. One of which they couldn't score a run in 10 innings.
I mean, can you say that they're battle tested because they swept the Astros, or took 2 of 3 of Kansas City? Because I mean, if you ask me, they lost 2 of 3 to Baltimore, a very good Baltimore team.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Are they getting there? Look, the Houston series is a huge step. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's more to me, it's a little bit more of a mental step than anything else. And like I said, that was a listless team. I mean, they were in 2 of those games until the last at bat, look, a 2-run win and a 1-run win, and half a game on Saturday that they were in. But yeah, looking again, you've got 4 against the White Sox, who about the only.
It's 3 against the
Tim Anderson punch joke here.
It's 3 against the White Sox, but
3 against the White Sox, and then come home 3 more against Kansas City, and 3 against Oakland, 3 at the Mets. I mean,
like it did the schedule.
Schedule
doesn't turn. The schedule doesn't turn.
Lose one game in there, but they can't lose more than 2.
Yeah. So all right. So check this out. They get 3 in Chicago before coming back against 3 against KC, 3 against Oakland. Then they go 3 against the Mets and 3 against the Reds. Right now, it's 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 games. The next 15 games, they have ample opportunity to fine-tune whatever bullpen issues that they have. To lock down whatever routine they need to before the schedule turns to 4 in Tampa. They come home for 3 against LA, 3 against the Dodgers, 3 in Oakland, 3 against Texas, 3 at Texas. And if we remember what happened the last time we went to Texas, they come home for 3 against Houston, and they finish 4 against Texas. So we get Texas for 7 games at the end of in the last 2 weeks of the season. We still got to face the Dodgers. Like right now, the Mariners can do themselves a big favor over the next 15 games, which is put distance on the wild card or catch Texas.
You got 4 against Tampa in there too on the road.
Correct.
Not that there'll be any fans in Tampa, but nonetheless, you still are a time zone away. That Reds series is very intriguing to me. You talk about a team that's turned it around. I think the next 12 games, we're going to find out a lot about this team in the next 12 games here, Steve. It's an opportunity to maybe jump up and grab that top wild card spot, if not take over the division lead outright.
That's exactly right.
But we're also going on the assumption that, number one, the Mariners are going to stay as hot as they are, and number two, that no one else is going to get hot as well. Maybe that'll happen. We'll see. So, I mean, look, you said they need to play 667 ball, winning percentage ball for a long time. They're ahead of that clip now. So now they've actually got a little bit of wiggle room. I don't see them resting, but I do see. I'll be curious to see is there any slumps coming? Eugenio Suarez, believe it or not, still leads Major League Baseball in strikeouts. He has taken the lead over from Teoscar Hernandez, who had taken the lead from Kyle Schwarber. I think Teoscar's still in the top 5. So that's still a thing. But look, they're getting more hits. Their on base percentage is better. They're not having to get the home runs. It's balls in the gaps. Dylan Moore singled the other way through a shift yesterday. Yeah, which I don't know. I saw that and I was like, that is what you need. That's a dag. You just stick it in them.
They're finally getting the clutch base hits. Yeah, they're finally getting the things that eluded them for the first 4 months of the season.
And there was another thing that was great about that Dylan Moore single. It was basically a double play type ground ball. It was to where, because they were playing in the shift, it was where nobody was playing. I was like, you know what? The best thing about that, it's an RBI single with a horrible exit velocity, and it goes against that whole narrative. I think that might have been the happiest thing I saw this weekend was a Dylan Moore weak opposite side single through a shift that knocked in runs, because little things like that is just what kicks the other team in the balls. And it did. I think that turned out to be the game-winning hit yesterday, or the game-winning RBI when it was all said and done on Sunday.
You know what? I don't know why, but I flash every single time that anybody talks about the shift. It always flashes me back to Kyle Seager against because he could never hit through a shift. Mm-hmm. And so when he was facing against heavy changeup pitchers, he would always ground out weakly into a double play into the shift. Yeah. I don't know why. I just always go back to Kyle Seager not being able to hit through the shift.
I think he had 4 home runs in his career that went the opposite way.
Right.
4.
Well, the good news is we're getting JP back. That's going to be huge. And I've been consistent when I'm saying this, especially late in the games. JP Crawford is absolutely monumental. And now, especially when you consider that they're starting to get production up and down the lineup. I'll say it again, man. It can't just be the Julio show. It can't just be the J-Rod show carrying you. You're going to have to get production, which is why I'm happy because Ty France is starting. Ty France, for the last couple of weeks now, he's been starting to barrel up balls, and that's absolutely huge because late game situations you're going to need Ty France. You know what? I don't mean to sound like Scott Service here. I really don't. But that being said, there's certain things where I can live with. If they're getting production, Teoscar is actually starting to hit the ball well too. I can live with Geno Suarez strikeouts. I can live with that. As long as it's not a 12 strikeout group effort. I can live with Geno striking out. But that being said, man, I just can't help but look forward because I'm just looking at this team right now. And of course, you absolutely hit it right on the head. We're assuming that the Mariners play 660 ball the rest of the way down. But I can't help but look forward to think this. I just don't want to say it, man, but I'm going to have to say it, man. This kind of reminds me a little bit of 95, a little bit. Different dynamic, of course, different team, different dynamic, but
the hot
I never
streak
thought
for sure.
The hot streak for sure. I never thought that they would catch Texas or come this close to the Texas Rangers. I just assumed in May the Texas Rangers would run away with this division. And now here we are on the cusp of September, and we're 3 games out in the division. And I can't stress this. I can't stress it enough. While getting into the postseason is the most important thing, and I don't care how we get in, but I'd rather have the division. Not for banner celebrations, just because you don't have to play in the wild card, and you start at home, so you're not on the road.
So we're not going to tell the story of how Buhner said F the wild card, let's win the whole thing?
No, we're not. Yeah,
that story didn't get told a million times.
Yeah, actually, no, it's been told the entire week. F the division. Oh no, F the wild card. We want the division.
F the wild card. Let's win the division.
Yeah, we want the division. Listen, man, I can't help. Like this is the inner baseball fan in me. This is why I love baseball and why I love this stupid fucking team. Because when they're good, they're very good and they're exciting. And you just can't help but just kind of look a little further and be like, well, yeah, man, maybe they do have a shot at the division.
It truly, whoever coined the term chaos ball could not have been more correct.
Correct.
They could.
By the way, who did? By the way, who did coin the term chaos ball?
The first person I heard say, that's a good question. The first person I heard say it was Scott Service.
Right.
And it was in 2021, chaos ball, and I was like, okay, here's some chaos for you, Steve.
Go ahead.
In this last week, 6 of the 7 games the Mariners had double-digit strikeouts.
Yeah,
6 of the 7 games. The only game they didn't was the 10-inning win in Kansas City, and they struck out 9 times in that game.
Yeah.
So.
Listen, they're not perfect. I can't.
They're getting a lot of guys on. They're getting a lot of guys on base, and the runners in scoring
exactly
position
right.
is finally going up.
Now, I will say, it was the second or third game in Kansas City where the Mariners had runners on. They had the first 3 innings. They had runners on second with 1 out, and they couldn't score.
Yeah,
and it was all just like that. I can't like there. You still see pockets. You still see pockets of the Mariners being the Mariners, but yet for whatever reason, when they play the middle third and the final third of the game, what's eluding them in the first third seems to materialize when it matters the most, which is usually the 6th inning on. Yeah, they're getting those RBIs late in the game, which matters. So
well, it's helping out those performances where it takes 8 pitchers to nail down a win like it did yesterday. And that's a lot. I mean, there's bullpen, quote unquote bullpen days that haven't taken 8 pitchers before. So it's good to see him getting through it. But you look at this bullpen, and I just wonder how much longer is that going to last. The offense, for once, is finally carrying. And the starting pitching's still been pretty, obviously
very
decent,
good.
But even they got knocked around a little bit this past week. But the run support has been way up to make up for it. So, and it's about time that one has worked and the other has been able to cover the other for once.
Yeah, well, yesterday's situation with Saucedo getting bombed for 5 runs. I felt bad for him because Saucedo has actually been pitching very well, but it is what it is. And then of course Thornton, Thornton had a bad outing in Kansas City, and then he turned around and actually pitched pretty well yesterday. That was that's not a good way to go to Chicago, having utilized your entire bullpen the day before to finish off a sweep. That's you're basically what you're asking tonight. Let's see. Tonight is who's starting tonight? Looks like you're going. Let's see. Who's going today?
Well, trying to find it's driving me insane. It should be Kirby's day, is it not?
Yeah. I think you're right. So essentially, what you're asking for is George Kirby.
I'm sorry, Luis Castillo. Kirby goes tomorrow. Yeah.
So essentially you're hoping and praying Castillo goes 7 tonight.
Mm-hmm.
With the Luis Castillo issues that Luis Castillo happens to have, which is you have no idea what you're going to get in the first 3 innings before he finally settles in.
My biggest pleasant surprise was Bryce Miller's outing on Friday. I mean, his fastball, I thought they would light him the fuck up in Houston.
That was my concern as well too. 100%.
I would have bet my house payment that he'd get bombed in that. Didn't happen. Looked like a totally different guy.
Well, if you notice that Houston and Texas are kind of a similar team, they're a very good early fastball hitting team. And that was, when we were talking about this last week going into this, that was one of my main concerns was the fact that there's going to be a start where somebody's going to get, I thought somebody was going to get shelled. And when you were looking at the matchups, you were kind of looking at Bryce. I think you said it last week too. You were looking at the Bryce Miller matchup and you're like,
yeah. It was a wince.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, I would probably assume that all 3 games, you're probably looking for your starters to go 7, 6, 7 innings, because there's an off day.
They're off on Thursday. You got to start. They're so caught up in pitch count. You got to 7 out here just to alleviate this bullpen.
Right.
I don't want to see Bizardo in there trying to close out a game at Comiskey Park. I mean, all I can think of is Bizarro World from the old Justice League cartoons from the early 80s.
Yeah, well, you know what? I've always thought I always felt that your best reliever should be used kind of like like Terry Francona was the best. If you remember in 2016 when they had Andrew Miller, they used him everywhere from the 6th all the way to the 9th, and I've always believed that, right? But right now the Mariners are in a situation where they got a lot of middle relievers in their bullpen, not really, not a tremendous amount of setup guys, and I don't think Brash is a setup guy, and I certainly don't think Munoz is either, and they certainly don't have a closer. And in this situation, I would probably just feel like having Topa in the 9th inning with his sinker would probably do wonders. But yet, I'm a little worried about it. I'm actually, the reason why I'm worried about this is if you remember, Chicago has never been good to Seattle. Even when Seattle was
not in
good,
Chicago.
Not
even
in
when
Chicago.
Mike Cameron hit 4 home runs there.
Right, dude, it was a house of pain. I always call Chicago the house of pain, and so now you're coming off a situation.
Minute Maid Park in Houston, the same thing, and look what just happened there. So you said in last week's show there was going to be some demons exercise, and you were dead on right. I wonder if that's not the case this time. I mean, if there was ever a time that you're going to go into the south side of Chicago and sweep, it's tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday morning.
Well,
Julio Rodriguez, by the way, you'll be surprised at this. Named American League Player of the Week as he hit 568. 568.
Unbelievable.
For the week. So, Banner, you may keep more of that, please. Keep that up.
The only worry I have is we didn't go into that Houston series with a bullpen issue as we go into Chicago. That's basically the only thing I'm worried about. And if you remember, going into that opener in Kansas City, do you know it? Like the Mariners were flat in that game because they came off, I guess you can call it, I hate using this term too, a spirited weekend series versus the Orioles where they lost 2 extra innings. They come to Kansas City the very next day and they were flat the entire game. And it's almost the same situation here. They had a phenomenal series against the Houston Astros. They get the sweep. They basically spent their entire bullpen. My question coming into tonight's game is how that's not an issue of preparedness, but how pumped up are they going to be after coming off this sweep against the Astros?
I think quite a bit. How long is that energy level? How long can it sustain? I mean, right. I guess that's the thing of youth. even a veteran like Suarez. There's something about the Latino players that just, they are able to bring an enormous amount of energy and passion. I think it's one of the things that can really fire him up and make him make a mediocre player play above his head. Whereas I think not everybody has that key, but certainly the emotional leadership that Julio has brought, kind of the younger vibe in there. Dominic Canzone, in his award-winning post-game interview with Peacock yesterday, was talking about that. And I can completely buy into that. I can absolutely buy into that, how, it's keeping everybody loose and they're not tensed up. Because it would have been easy, 4 weeks ago to teeter. I mean, you were on the brink.
Right. I understand. But all right. So I like, by the way, this week, if we're in all honesty, this week, we have three, we got 3 in Chicago, and then we have 3 at home against Kansas City with a day off on Thursday. So again, it's going to be much of the situation as it was this week, although, we don't have a good weekend series. If this Mariner team does not come out of this week going at least 5-1, something incredibly went wrong.
Sure.
Like I don't buy into the whole Root Sports narrative that there's something about Kansas City when Seattle and Kansas City hook up.
No.
Like I don't buy that narrative at all.
There wasn't any aura or juice there. They looked like shit in all 4 games. They just happened to win 3 of them.
Right. They have a tendency to play down to their inferior competition, and I don't care what anybody said. There's no way that Seattle ever should have squeaked by Kansas City at all. So I look at this week and I say to myself, okay, cool. You're 3 behind Texas. You lead a wild card. The goal this week should be the same intensity, the same momentum, and try to pick up a game or 2 on Texas. I'm kind of curious to see who Texas plays this week, because now you can honestly look at Texas and start doing that now. Mm-hmm. You're within the margin of error. You're within the margin of error in the division. So
this is 95, and you can look at the Angels and see who they're playing tonight.
That's exactly right.
Texas lost 4 straight. They are at Arizona for 2. Then they're at Minnesota. Then they're at the Mets. So they got a little bit of a feel-good tour coming. Right. But I don't know. Minnesota is such a, pardon the pun, is such a wild card. Then they got 3 against Minnesota at home. So they've got a lull, but seeing Scherzer get hit with a loss yesterday was interesting. That's a team that's suddenly the Rangers that were 70-47. Suddenly they're it's weird how you drop.
It's baseball.
5 of 7 in a week, and all of a sudden you look like Tyson in the Buster Douglas fight after you've taken 2 hard rights. People start going, oh.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that Rangers team is so loaded, though.
I know
that offense is so loaded. But I don't know. Something made me chuckle when you were talking about when you were just comparing the Texas Rangers to the 95 Angels. And what's so interesting about it is when I think back to that rotation had Chuck Finley and Mark Langston in it. How does that team drop a 12-game lead?
I'll go to my grave not knowing.
That was actually
because they did play Seattle head-to-head well. That's the other odd part.
Yeah.
The Mariners really, when they would play head-to-head, the Mariners really had to fight and scratch and battle in that series, or in those head-to-head games.
Oh, but I mean, that Angels team, if that Angels team didn't collapse, that team probably beats the Indians in the LCS. And by the way, that was a very good Indians team. That was a very good 95 Indians team.
Oh, it was. Dude.
Benny Ramirez.
That was an Indians team that frankly should have won the World Series.
100%.
But 100%. They just ran into a buzzsaw that was due for its day in the Atlanta Braves that year for sure. Yeah, Brian Anderson, Jim Abbott, Sean Bosky, Chuck Finley, and Mark Langston. Here's your bullpen: Lee Smith,
Okay.
If he's not in the Hall of Fame, he should be. Troy Percival, Mike Bilecki, Mike Harkey, Russ Springer, Scott Sanderson.
Russ Springer.
Yeah. Is this? No way that this is him. Mitch Williams.
Yeah.
Mitch Williams had time in that bullpen.
So I didn't even know Mitch Williams was on that team, because it wasn't
until Luis I clicked on Baseball Reference 9 seconds ago. Neither did I.
Wait, so
it was his last year in the bigs.
Wasn't Luis Polonia on that 95 Angels team? Who am I thinking about? I
believe Luis Polonia was their utility guy, if I remember correctly.
I thought Luis Polonia was on that team, because I know Tim Salmon was on that team. The center fielder,
Jim Edmonds.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really good team. A very young JT Snow was on that team. Chili Davis.
That's who I'm thinking about. Chili Davis. Yeah, that's who
you know what? I do not see Luis Polonia's name on here, but I could have sworn he was there.
That's so
okay. Spike Owen was there.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's crazy. All right.
The bullpen is my main concern going forward at this point.
Agreed.
This is Band-Aids on, I won't say a chainsaw wound, but it's definitely time for a trip to Walgreens for another box of Band-Aids.
Well, I think the Mariners just signed another arm yesterday. I think I read that on MLB Trade Rumors. But again, you're just talking about DFA candidates that they're bringing in. And yes, Mariner fans out there that are paying attention, if Paul Sewald were still on this team, yes, they would still be that good.
Yeah.
Period. Point blank. It would actually be a lot better.
His departure is not the reason why they're winning.
Correct. I don't want to hear this.
In fact, they may have even won more if he was still on this team.
Probably. We're at that point in the show where we're going to get into winners and losers. And this is kind of an interesting week, because I'm curious to know what your loser is, but we're going to start with winners. And you're going to go up. You're going to go first. Winner.
Boy, my winner. I mean, it's easy to throw the net at Julio there. My winner, I'm actually going to go with is Eugenio Suarez, just because the guy's been really, really consistent and driving in runs. I mean, I think during the stretch, I think he's had 1 RBI. If not in every game, nearly every game. Has been extremely, and they've been clutch RBIs too. They've been big. It seems like he always gets an RBI, because Julio is always on base. It seems like he gets an RBI early in the game to kind of give him that 1-0 or make a 1-0 lead 2-0 and just kind of get off on the right foot in the games. And then he'll come up with something in the 6th or 7th inning that will add to it. I feel like every time that guy's at bat, other than Julio, obviously, every time he comes up at bat, there's always a guy on base. And it always feels like something big's going to happen. And you wonder if the other team's thinking that too. Like, oh, shit. This guy's hitting good. What are we going to do? He's not drawing walks. He's still striking out. But it just feels like that every time he's up, like he's the danger zone for the other teams right now. Because hitting in the spots that hitting in where he is in the lineup, the table's set for him, and he's bringing an extra salad fork. And I feel like he just, when I see him up, I'm going, ooh, okay, have a seat, tune in. That's the vibe. He's my winner. Dude,
I love your salad fork reference. That was a nice, delicious pun right there, with your setting the table. I like that. So I know you're right. You can throw a net around Julio, and that's my winner, 100%. But it was the little things that I liked about Julio this week, because when he wasn't hitting for power, he was getting on base. As one of the things that we harped upon all season long when it came to Julio Rodriguez was the fact that as a leadoff hitter, if your power is not going, at least try to figure a way to get on base.
Yep.
And he was getting on base and doing damage as well too late in the games. I don't like doing. You said he hit 556 this week. I mean, that's unbelievable. You're talking about a week where he drives in 12. So this week was legitimately the J-Rod show. I guess the question moving forward is, because we're going to get J.P. Crawford back at some point, I believe, this week. Maybe they're keeping him in Everett for the first part of the week. So when the Mariners come home against Kansas City towards the end of the week, you know what I mean? So they're going to keep him close to Seattle. The question that I have for you is, do you think Scott Service, is he going to resist the urge of keeping Julio at the top of the lineup, or are they going to put JP right up there, put JP 1 and Julio 2?
Service to me has
because
I would debate whether or not he has any decision-making power in the lineup at all.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So there's that. But no, I think they'll keep Julio at the top because the Mariner management, despite any flaws or successes on the field, there's an arrogance that goes with them, and they feel they can do no wrong. Therefore, those type of people are not going to make any sort of change.
Well, you know what's crazy is like how do you not put JP at the top of the lineup? Because here's the thing: it's like Julio just had a great week. It's 1 week, right? There's you hit it earlier in the show right on the head. Is there a slump coming? Right.
There's bound to be a lull after you're hitting 568.
Well, my point is like when this team started its sustained success. I don't know why I can't spit that out. It started with not Julio, but with JP at the top of the lineup, right? When when it's weird to describe, but for a guy that doesn't hit for much power, his ability to get rallies going late in ball games, his ability to draw walks, his ability to get clutch base hits. If it were, obviously it's not my decision, but at the end of the day, man, I would probably just think that they would put JP right at the top of the lineup because there's no difference between 1 and 2. Swanee, there's no difference. You're still going to get the 4 at bats, and at the very least, you're putting Julio's coming up with runners on base because you probably assume JP is going to get on base.
Yeah. No, I agree. If I was making the lineup card, I would do that, but I don't have Jerry DiPoto's 1986 Val Kilmer Iceman cool haircut and the brain that's underneath it to come up with a lineup card to hand Service every night. They'll keep Julio at the top of the lineup. Would be my guess. Yeah. Should they? No. I think JP should go down there.
Yeah.
Where did you read that he was going to Everett?
It was on I think it was on a 710 Facebook post, a Seattle Sports Facebook post where he's going on a rehab assignment with the Everett Aqua Sox. I think that's good. I would probably assume that's today.
Well, because here's the thing: minor league baseball is off on Mondays, and he was activated today. So Everett wouldn't play today. I know Tacoma does not play today. Also, Tacoma's at home this week. Everett's on the road. Not that the road is very far in the Northwest League. I think they're at Tri-Cities. So look, they may do it because they're on the road. They may do it to get him in at bat as fast and as close as they can and as fast as they can. And they come back home and start a weekend series on Friday. So really, there's 4 days of a lull right now. On the calendar, if you factor in the off day for minor league baseball, which is today, Monday, August 21st, as we tape this, and then the M's are off on Thursday as they travel back from the House of Horrors known as the South Side of Chicago. So, look, I'd like to see JP back in the leadoff spot, and I'd like to see Julio in the 2. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's maybe, do you if it isn't broke, don't fix it. Leave him at the top and give him that extra at bat. And kudos to the guys at the bottom of the lineup finding ways to get on for later in the game. And Julio's coming up with guys on.
You know what?
That's a big key.
So he had his rehab assignment on Saturday.
Okay.
There you go.
So he already had it because you can do rehab when you're on the IL.
Correct. And so he had it on Saturday.
He's probably back with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the lineup tonight.
Oh, I would probably assume.
I'd almost be pissed if he wasn't at this point.
Let's find out.
Looking at the Eugenio. I don't know if they've come out. It's at 155. Well, you know what? Their lineup should be out by now.
Right,
Their
that's
starting
what
lineup should be out because we're about 3 hours from game time. But yeah, I think they keep Julio at the top of the lineup. Where I don't want to see JP is down in that 9, where they're doing the whole. He's like a leadoff hitter, but we're putting him at the end. I don't think right now you can do that. He's just too much. He's doing too good of a job of drawing walks. So I would hope that he's back at the top. But I could see him going in the 2. I could see him dropping into the 2, and then you've got your Suarez, Raleigh. It's been a mishmash of who's hitting cleanup on there. But it's been good to see. It's a sight for sore eyes. And this is what this is kind of what I expected in May and June, to be honest with you. I expected sweeps over teams like Detroit and the Washington Nationals, and even teams like Pittsburgh. This is what I was expecting a long time ago. Or this is what I was hoping for. Maybe I shouldn't say expecting, because there are deficiencies in the hitting lineup. Obviously not right now, but yeah, no, that the bullpen being my biggest fear. My loser for the week. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, so right now, according to MLB.com, Castillo goes against Toussaint tonight. Touki Toussaint, who's 1-5 with a 4.47 ERA. Chicago has its lineup out, but the Mariner lineup is TBD, to be determined.
Okay.
So not yet. Not yet.
Playing a pair of 2s close to their chest. Okay, I get it. My loser this week. My loser this week is MLB and their streaming TV deals, and this is immediately going to sound like a old man on the lawn, not embracing the new technology. It isn't that they're streaming games. That's not what I'm pissed about. I'm pissed at the lack of consistency at it. If you're going to do this, do it more, and don't make it exclusive to. Okay. Don't make it exclusive that you have to have Peacock to see yesterday's game, or you have to have Apple TV Plus to see Friday's game against Kansas City when they come back home. And it's just it's like once a month, or sometimes even less than once a month. This because yesterday was the first time they played a streaming game for quite a while. The inconsistency of that, and here's another thing, why I'm annoyed with this. It goes to the blackout rule. You have MLB TV, so
I sure do.
The blackout rule. If you're a Mariner fan and you want to watch this team every night, Root Sports, the home of the Mariners, you are having to pay either DirecTV or Comcast or Fubo if you get it streaming there.
Correct.
You're already having to pay out of pocket to something. You're paying Fubo $30 a month, or you're paying Comcast Xfinity or DirecTV, probably even for your base packages that would include the regional sports channel. You're paying anywhere between $125 to $165 a month. You're already paying that.
Correct.
Now you got to turn around, give your email address out again, give your credit card number out again, and get another streaming service to be able to watch a game, because we're to the point now where your diehard fans want to watch every single game. But it's like one's on Peacock, and then we're going to have one on Apple TV. And then a little bit later, we're going to have one over here. Be more consistent. Have them on Apple TV. Do what MLS did. Have them all on Apple TV.
Right.
Where you get the pass and there's no blackouts. I mean,
see, I say
that they did something right in MLS, but they did, at least on that one. So that's my loser of the week is MLB and their TV deals.
I gotta be perfectly honest. I illegally pirated the game yesterday. Thanks to my ex-wife, who has a streaming site that she goes online. She passed that information along, and I got what's funny, because you get Peacock free with Comcast. They give you like a little box, but in order to get certain things, you have to upgrade. And I was like, dude, I'm not upgrading just to watch the final game. And I found a streaming site to do it anyway. But here's the other thing, right? So if you don't have Apple TV or you don't have Peacock, there's always something called the radio. You can always listen to it. You know what I mean? There's been many times this season where, unfortunately, I was in a situation where I couldn't watch the game, but I could always put earbuds in and listen to the game. It still works the exact same way.
Nothing takes you back to 1989 like Rick Riz screaming and the holy smokes call.
Oh no!
You're going to get objective down the middle calls and reporting on the radio.
By the way, if you want to talk about old school announcing, nobody was better than Captain Obvious, and his name was Ron Fairley.
Oh yeah,
I loved Ron Fairley so much. Great guy too. I've talked to Ron a few times in my life.
He 1-0 in the fourth inning, and he'd bust out the "Why you needed one run, now you're gonna need two." It was
with a ground ball.
The USS, no shit.
It's like with a runner on third and a ground ball up the middle, that runner's going to be looking to score. Yeah, well, no shit. Here's a little Ron Fairley fact before I get into my loser. He was the guy that replaced Duke Snider with the Dodgers, and Dodgers
big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and Dodgers fans hated Ron Fairley because they were such a huge fan of Duke Snider, and it's like, well, what are you going to do? They got Duke can't play anymore. They have to fill the position, and so they automatically hated Ron Fairley because of it. But my loser for the week is going to be the powers that be that are deciding on who's going to be pitching the ninth right now. I know that they're going whether that's Scott Service or whether that's Jerry DiPoto or Hollander. Whoever is in charge of making these decisions, I swear to God, just pick one guy and roll with it. The thing about it is especially there. Okay, well, here's the one thing. When it comes to relief pitchers want consistency because it's a comfortability knowing that game in and game out they're going to be in that role every single day. Okay, and now when you're juggling that. And one day you have Matt Brash is pitching the sixth, and now he's pitching the ninth. You're juggling two different roles, and maybe he doesn't necessarily have the intestinal fortitude to handle one or the other. So familiarity is so huge with relievers. So fucking pick someone and let them roll in the ninth. If that's going to be Munoz, then that's going to be Munoz. If it's going to be Brash, fine, whatever. If it's going to be whatever, pick. Especially coming into September. And especially the second half of September, as you're going to get into the playoffs, there's got to be some familiarity when it comes to defined roles in the bullpen. That has to be locked down. I'm serious. You can't go closer by committee because you're going to see results as you're going to see that you saw in Kansas City.
I don't want to see Isaiah Campbell in the 8th or 9th of a close game.
I don't even want to see Isaiah Campbell. I don't want to even no disrespect to Isaiah Campbell, but if it I hate to use this term like winning teams or playoff teams, but when you look at those teams and their bullpens, you're not going to see the Isaiah Campbells of the world in those bullpens. And it's no disrespect to Campbell; he's earned the right to be here. But that being said, it's like I don't even want to see him in the 6th or the 7th. Sorry, but yeah, my loser is going to be the guy who's responsible for this bullpen fuckery. So There you go.
The ghost, kind of like the ghost runner in baseball. It's the ghost front office person, or the ghost person in the dugout. We don't really know.
We don't really know,
but we don't.
Right. Actually, I think you and I both know who that person who's in charge is. But anyway, all right. So we're at the end of the show, and it's time for our Jerry. So let's go to our trivia question, and of course, it is: there's been 4 Mariners in history that have hit for the cycle. Okay? Give me the first and the last, or give me all 4 in order.
Oh, in order. Ooh, wow, boy, the curveball on this. Okay, in order. Jay Buhner was the first.
Ding! What year?
1995. No?
3.
Okay.
He did it in 93, but you got Jay Buhner right. Number 2.
Dan Wilson?
No.
Alex Rodriguez?
Ding! What year?
96. 97.
97. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3.
Dan Wilson?
Nope. Is not on the list.
Really?
Did not hit.
Dan Wilson didn't hit for the cycle?
I think you're remembering the game where he hit the inside the park home run in the Kingdom.
I do remember that. I thought he hit for the cycle. Okay.
He did not.
Okay, then I'm going to be missing a guy. But here's my John Olerud.
What year?
2001.
Correct. That's number 3. So you've got the first 3 in order: Buhner, A-Rod, Olerud. Who was the last?
Give up.
Adrian Beltre.
Oh my goodness! I did not know. I wouldn't have guessed that in 100 years.
And he did.
I would have guessed Richie Sexton before I guessed him.
and he did that in
Or Milton
2008.
Bradley. Okay.
Milton Bradley.
Sure. He was crazy enough to leg out a triple and pray for a bad throw.
That's funny. Yeah, maybe Milton Bradley when he was with the Cubs, but by the time he got to Seattle, he didn't even want to play baseball anymore. All right, so we're at the end of the show.
Check though, like most of us.
And we are at the right before we go. We set our predictions for the week, and of course, we have 3 in Chicago, 3 at home against KC with an off day. How does this week go?
I'm gonna say they take a shit here and there. I'm gonna go 4-2.
Okay.
Just because you're gonna have a hiccup here or there. It's just math. And then maybe they fuck one up, that they shouldn't somewhere like they did last Monday night. Right. So I'm gonna say 4-2.
I'm gonna say 4-2 as a baseline because I actually think that hiccup is gonna be tonight. Tax bullpen. Like, don't get me wrong. Like everything on paper suggests that the Mariners should win this game tonight because you're going against a no-name rookie pitcher for the White Sox, who's got damn near a 5 ERA. But coming into this game, tax bullpen. And there's the Luis Castillo factor of this game of not knowing what you're going to get in the first 3 innings. I'll say this: if there's going to be a shit the bed game, it's going to be tonight. But I also think that I think at least Kansas City takes one of those games in Seattle. I'm going to say 4-2 as well too.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, last Monday I said I'm not worried about Brady Singer, and look where that got me.
And Brady Singer pitched a no-hitter through 62
Oh my
birds.
Goodness. He was out there looking like Cy Young, but that's against it and against what turned out to be a pretty good Mariner batting lineup last week. So, I don't know. Looking at God.
By the way, that was the game where the Mariners came back to take the lead in the 9th inning, 6-5, and then that was the Matt.
And then
Brash.
they blew it.
Yeah, that was the Matt Brash game. Yep. So, all right.
Good week. Good vibes only.
Yeah, good vibes only, guys. Only positive and progressive, fellas. Mm-hmm. All right, so that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next Monday. Until that point in time, stay real.